If you want to level up your points redemptions, you need to be looking into positioning flights. This is a strategy where you prioritize getting the best deal possible over the ocean and then maybe tacking on flights separately from your home airport to the major hub airport that you found the deal from. Or maybe you need to book a separate flight from wherever you land in Europe or Asia to your final destination separately. If that all sounds like a hassle, then this video is for you, because in today's tutorials, we are covering 5 airline programs that can add in that positioning flight for no additional points cost, so let's jump right in. The first airline that we're going to talk about where you can oftentimes get positioning flights covered for free is Singapore Airlines. Oftentimes, we get requests for different destinations in Asia where there's not a direct flight from the United States. For example, a lot of people like to fly into Bali, but you can't fly directly from the US to Bali. Or sometimes people like to fly into Thailand, but you can't fly directly from the US to Thailand. The closest you can get is Vancouver, especially if you want to fly into a smaller airport in Thailand like Phuket or one of the other Thai islands. So, where does Singapore Airlines fit into this? Well, if you go to flightconnections.com and then you click right here where it says Airlines, and then you search for the code SQ, that's going to be Singapore Airlines, and it will show you all of the different destinations that you can fly to with flights operated by Singapore Airlines. And oftentimes, as long as there is availability, you can fly directly from the United States through Singapore into many other locations in Southeast Asia for no additional cost. We're talking Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and so many other places where there's not otherwise a convenient flight directly to the US. So let's do a quick example. Here on SingaporeAirlines.com, we are going to log in and then click on Redeem Flights. Here are all of the different airports in the United States where you can fly to Singapore on Singapore Airlines. You only have a few options. You've got Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, JFK, and Newark. Unfortunately, they've recently taken out the Houston option, so this is all you've got to work with in the US now. Let's say that you want to fly from Seattle over to the Philippines. Well, what you could do is search for Seattle to Singapore first. And let's say that you want to do this Cinco de Mayo next year. We're just searching for one way for one person in business class. Go ahead and click on search with Singapore Airlines. And from here, you'll see that there is Saver Space to fly directly from Seattle over to Singapore. With Saver Space, it's only 107,000 miles, or if there's not Saver Space, it would be 128.5 thousand miles with the regularly priced Advantage rate. But this gets even better. Not only do they have Saver Space for this route, but if we do the same search where we are redeeming flights from Seattle and we are searching all the way to Manila, Philippines for the same date on May 5th, one way for one person in business class, and then we click on search, it's still the same price. Even though we've tacked on another leg here, Seattle to Singapore would be 107,000 miles, but Seattle through Singapore into Manila is also 107,000 miles. And you have a variety of different layover durations to choose from, whether you just want a quick stop where it's 2 hours in the Singapore airport, or if you want to extend your trip and stay for about 20 hours in Singapore, that is also 107,000 miles here. Now, if you want to build in a complimentary stopover with Singapore, you can actually do that with the Advantage rates. So up here, it'll say your itinerary to or from Manila is eligible for a complimentary stopover in Singapore. So you can add a stopover and say that you wanted to stay in Singapore for a couple of days before continuing on to Manila. If you add in the stopover, it's not going to qualify for the Saver rate anymore, but it does still qualify for the Advantage rate. So those are a couple different ways where you can tack on another stop with Singapore Airlines at no extra cost when it comes to your points and miles. If you're new to points and miles, and that was a bit confusing, check out our free Points 101 course at geobreezetravel.com/free course. We'll take you from ground zero to making your first redemption, and the course is completely free. Up next, let's talk about how to get free positioning flights to smaller airports in Europe. In this example, we're going to talk about how you can get free positioning flights within Europe. let's say that you wanted to go to a smaller airport in Europe, not the usual Frankfurt, London, Paris, Milan, Madrid, those usual ones. Let's say you wanted to go somewhere that doesn't have a ton of direct flights into the United States, somewhere like Marseille, France. You can connect all over Europe into Marseille, but for North America, Montreal is your only option. So, what can be done? Well, one of the best airlines for getting free positioning flights within Europe is actually Air France. And Air France and KLM Flying Blue connects to so many different airports within the United States. On flight connections, let's say that we are searching for airlines and we checkbox Air France. You have a lot of options within the United States. So you've got Dallas, Houston, Chicago, you've got Raleigh-Durham, Washington, D.C., you've got Minneapolis, you've got Detroit. You have a lot to choose from when it comes to Air France, or you can also check KLM, which is within the same loyalty program. And with that one, you could do Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, San Diego, Atlanta. So let's see if we can find flights into Marseille for the same price as anywhere else in Europe, therefore effectively getting the positioning flight within Europe to Marseille for free. I'm going to run this search from Houston, Texas. So I'm going to log into airfrance.us, click on Book with Miles one way from Houston, and just check the pricing over to Paris. I'm going to search for one person in business class, and I'm going to leave the departure date blank, because if you leave the departure date blank and then click on search flights, you are going to get this handy dandy calendar, which will actually show you the cheapest points prices to fly for the entire year. So we can see here in August, that's the cheapest month to fly from Houston to Paris in the summertime. It's only 60,000 points per person one way in business class on August 17. Or if we scroll a little bit further, if you wanted to go in the off season like December, January, February, March, there are also a few dates here where it would only be 60,000 points to fly in business class with Air France from Houston over to Paris. And there is quite a few dates in January for that 60,000 point price. Now, for a lot of these different dates, you can also just fly from Houston through Paris into Marseille for no extra cost when it comes to points. So instead of searching into Charles de Gaulle, we are going to search into MRS Airport, which is Marseille. One way from Houston to Marseille, leave the departure date blank for one adult in business class, then click on Find Flights. And then from here, we can see that that date in August, on August 17, still the exact same points price for 60,000 points that we saw before. And what that means is they're not charging us anything extra for that second leg from Paris to Marseille. It's just the same price as if you flew into just Paris. So if you are looking to fly within Europe to one of the smaller airports like Prague or Dubrovnik or Budapest, Hungary, or somewhere else where there's not a ton of great direct flight options to the United States, check out Air France or KLM Flying Blue, because oftentimes they'll fly you into Paris or Amsterdam and tack on that extra leg within Europe for no extra cost. If you are looking to get more out of your points, please let me know. Click that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel for even more points and miles tips every week. Next, let's talk about if you want to fly to parts of Africa that are harder to get to, like the Seychelles or a smaller airport to start a safari. Here is how you can get your positioning flights covered, even if you are flying out of a small airports in the United States into a small airport in Africa. The next region that I want to discuss is in Africa, especially if you are going somewhere like the Seychelles or a more remote safari destination like perhaps Entebbe, Uganda, where there's not a good convenient direct flight from the United States. If you want to go somewhere in Africa, I would recommend looking into United. Air Canada works for this as well, but I tend to find more availability through United, and it's usually just 88,000 points in business class. Let's do an example. So on seats.aero, you can click Explore and then explore United from North America to Africa. However, what you're going to find if you try to pick certain airports as the arrival airport is that seats.aero is pretty limited in which airports it specifically tracks through this page. For example, the Seychelles, which has the airport code SEZ, is not to be found here. Same with if you wanted to fly into Madagascar, which has the code TNR, that's not here either. So what I would do instead is see what US airports you should start your search from, and then see if you can find anything to the Seychelles from there. Because oftentimes you're going to need to connect through some of these major airports anyway. We see a lot of availability from Newark and Washington, D.C., so let's check from IAD. Here we are going to go to united.com. We are going to search from IAD over to SEZ. We are going to click one way, book with miles, flexible dates, and let's search as far out in the calendar as we can. Then we're going to select one adult in business class for now to make this a little bit easier, and then click find flights. And I think United is glitching a little bit here because it's saying that we can fly this for 49.5 thousand miles, which I highly doubt, but let's just go ahead and click on any of the dates in April and see what it gives us from here. So that 49.5 thousand point price is an economy. Once I clicked on it, the calendar fixed itself, and it says that pretty much any day in late April you can fly from Washington, D.C. over to the Seychelles for 88,000 points, plus $23.60 in taxes and fees per person one way in business class. So if we sort by business class lowest, we'll see that this actually goes from Washington, D.C. through Chicago, into Ethiopia, into the Seychelles. That's more stops than I was expecting. I was thinking this was going to go from D.C. through Ethiopia into the Seychelles with just one stopover. But this actually makes a pretty good point that maybe you're not based in Washington, D.C. Maybe you were going to have to take a positioning flight there anyway, but you're actually in a smaller airport like Nashville. So let's see if we can price this out to go from Nashville through Chicago into Ethiopia into the Seychelles, because you might be able to get the US side positioning flight for free included into this as well. So instead of searching from IAD up here, let's search from BNA. We're going to leave the arrival airport as SEZ. Let's just keep the same date, one person, and then click update. And here we do see that it is still 88,000 miles. Not every day is 88,000, but there is still a good amount of saver space. We do have to watch out because it says mixed cabin right here. So let's click on details and see what we've got. So as long as you're okay flying from Nashville to Chicago in economy, which is perfectly fine because that is an hour and 43 minutes, the rest of this would still be in business class. You'll fly Chicago over to Ethiopia, and then Ethiopia over to the Seychelles, all in business class, and the entire flight is only 88,000 miles plus $23.60. And if you have a card like the United Explorer card, you'll actually get a little bit of a discount, so it'll price at more like 80,000 miles. If you have any plans on going into Africa, and especially if you have some United miles already and you're flexible with dates, this is a great way to get your positioning flights covered, both on the US side and also on the Africa side. If you're in the market for a new card to earn more points, but not sure what card to get, we offer free credit card consultations at geobreezetravel.com/consultations. We'll send you personalized recommendations based on your particular goals, budget, and lifestyle. Next, we're covering one of the most versatile airlines when it comes to getting your points flights covered, and that is because of how they uniquely price their reward flights. Here's the play. One of the most versatile programs for including free positioning flights is Air Canada. And that's because the way that they price out their award charts is region and distance based, where if you're flying from North America to the Atlantic region, which is Europe or Africa, or the Pacific region, like Asia or Australia or Latin America, the pricing is based off of what region you're flying to and also how many physical miles you are flying. So let's do an example. Let's say that we want to find flights over to Sydney, Australia. So we jump on seats.aero, click on Explore, go to Air Canada, and then search for flights from North America over to Oceania. I have narrowed down the results to Sydney, and it shows that there are a few flights from Los Angeles to Sydney on June 25th, and some last-minute flights on June 3rd and June 5th as well. These are all going to price out at 100,000 points, and if I check those on Air Canada specifically, I can verify that the price is 100,000 points. And that is exactly what we see right here, and it looks like there's actually 7 seats left on this particular flight. But if we look at the pricing chart between North America and the Pacific zones, This would fall into this bucket where it's between 7,500 and 11,000 physical miles to fly between Los Angeles and Sydney, so the median price would be 100,000 points. If you want to double check how far it is to fly from one city to another, I like this free website, Great Circle Mapper. I put in the path of Los Angeles to Sydney, and it says the distance here is 6,500 miles, which is a little bit less than what Air Canada is showing. They're saying it's bumped up into the 7,500 mile bucket, but sometimes Great Circle Mapper is a little bit off versus how Air Canada maps their routes. That being said, we have quite a bit of mileage to play with here in case we wanted to get another positioning flight into the same itinerary for no extra cost. So if we go back to the main page of Air Canada and modify our search, let's see if we can find this same flight on the same date, but instead, I want to fly from Phoenix instead of Los Angeles. So then our route would be Phoenix through Los Angeles into Sydney on the same date where we saw availability before. And fingers crossed, it's not going to cost any extra points and miles to tack on this positioning flight because of how Air Canada does their pricing charts. So we just sort by business class lowest here, and then we see it's still 100,000 miles, a little bit more in taxes just because you still have to pay those small taxes within the United States. But this is 95% in business class, so it's a mixed cabin where Phoenix to Los Angeles would be included in that price. It's an economy, and then you're still flying Los Angeles over to Sydney in United Airlines business class. So if you are flying from a smaller airport and you see a really good deal out of a big airport like Los Angeles or San Francisco, New York, Miami, any of the larger airports, especially if they are frequented by Star Alliance partners like United, check with Air Canada to see if you can also just tack on your positioning flight for no extra points cost here, because that saves you the hassle of buying an extra flight from Phoenix to Los Angeles or driving from Phoenix to Los Angeles or anything else like that. Our last tutorial covers one of my favorite programs for free positioning flights. And you can fly from small town USA all the way to the Maldives. It'll just cost the same points price as what someone in a much larger city would pay to fly. And if you are a business owner or high cash flow professional who spends more than $100,000 per year on expenses, we typically save our clients $30,000 to $60,000 in travel in the first 6 to 12 months working with our one-on-one client service. If that sounds like something that you would be interested in, book a free intro chat with us at geobreezetravel.com/intro call to learn more. Okay, here is how to find great positioning flight options with American Airlines, and they don't usually show up on search aggregator tools. The next airline we're going to talk about where you can get free positioning flights is with American Airlines, and that's how you can find crazy good deals like this one, which goes from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way to the Maldives in Qatar Airways business class for only 70,000 points and $43 in taxes and fees. So for this one, let's reverse engineer how you can find flight deals like this. There are two approaches. Number one, you can pray. So what you can do is just go to aa.com and then click one way, redeem miles, and then just search for the route that you want. This one's going to be from SDF over to MLE. I'm just going to search for one person for last minute deals and then click search. So oftentimes you won't find anything if you just start here, but you never know. If you are very flexible on what day you're flying, then you can oftentimes find great deals this way. So this one doesn't quite go from Louisville, Kentucky. They suggested an alternate airport of CBG, which is pretty close by, and then going to London, then Sri Lanka, then the Maldives. This one's 70,000 points, but it is $1,100 in taxes and fees, which isn't ideal. So if you're coming up with something like this, what I would recommend doing is clicking on this calendar. Then instead of all classes, filter to business/first class. And this will show you some different days in June where there are 70,000 points. This is the saver space we're looking for. And sometimes it's $42 in taxes and fees, which is fantastic. Or if you don't want to go in June and you instead want to fly in July, it looks like the lowest price in July is 115,000 points. Same with August. So with this one, you won't always be able to find the 70,000 point price. For this particular route of Louisville over to the Maldives, it looks like last minute deals in June are going to be your best bet. However, I do want to point out, and we get so many questions about this, don't go to the Maldives during summer break. Go during winter break. Go sometime during December, January, February, instead of June, July, or August because it's mosquito season. But let's say that you don't care and you want to fly into a hotbed of mosquitoes for 70,000 points in business class, then you can go ahead and click on that date, sort by business class lowest, and then here's that deal we found earlier, which goes from Louisville to Philadelphia, then Philadelphia to Doha, then Doha into the Maldives. And there are 2 seats left for that one. That is option number 1, is just to search directly with the route that you want. Option number 2 is to go to seats.aero, click on Explore and then American Airlines, and then search from North America over to Asia. I like to filter by Qatar Airways here and hope that it will show me all of the good dates to fly between the US and Doha. And then from there, I start to tack on to see if there's any positioning flights that can get me from, let's say, JFK or Washington, D.C. over to the Maldives. And then if I'm really lucky, then I will search all the way from the US airport that I actually want to fly from all the way to the Maldives. However, as you can see, Seats.aero does not actually pick up all the availability. It's saying that the only direct flights on Qatar Airways business class for the full year is from JFK to Doha on June 7, Montreal to Doha on June 6th, IAD to Doha on June 5th, or Montreal to Doha on June 7, plus a whole bunch of other connecting flights. This direct flight from Philadelphia to Doha is operated by American Airlines. So let's see if it'll pick up on that one instead, where I say the arrival airport is Doha, operated by American Airlines, but it does not pick up on that Philadelphia to Doha direct leg on June 24, strangely enough. So while Seats.aero and a lot of the other tools that we often display on this channel are fantastic, and we use them to find so many great deals for our clients and our course members and everything else, it is good to develop the skills to find flight deals outside of the search aggregator tools, just because it's very unlikely that they would be able to find everything, especially if you're flying from a small airport. So that's why it helps to know how to search on the airlines directly so that you can find great deals like this from Louisville, Kentucky, all the way to the Maldives. I hope you found those tutorials useful. Let me know in the comments what kind of tutorials you would like to see next. And if you enjoyed this video, I think you'll enjoy this video next.